about finished. Coach Charlie is here to help us with our business goals and discovering how a change in perspective, a change in focus, in filter, that's what I wanted to come up with, will help us all, see ways to make progress on our goals. So Charlie, take it away, and you can pick on me if you want to, but you don't have to.
You don't have to this time. For those who weren't here last week, Leslie was a unbelievably gracious guinea pig in a pretty robust conversation about how projects go and what's present, and just as a conversation to highlight how each of us has stories about how our projects or how our businesses or how our lives are going. So thank you for that. So last week was kind of the big teaser. I'm kind of hoping maybe that's why people came in, was like, well, now we've talked about all the things that get in the way and how projects go. This time we're really going to be throwing some nuts and bolts. Let's build a project. And that's what we're going to do today. One of the things that I want to take a look at about building a project is that projects have two things that are the core. One piece is the what. The second piece is the by when. And in the conversations we've had in the past, the thing that came out was it's important because then we know where we're heading. We know which way to point the ship in, where to turn the car, whatever analogy you'd like to create. What I'd love to do is spend a minute talking about why it's important to look at what this will be like when you get there. Who has a what by when that they're trying to create, either in their personal life or their business? Who would be willing to share that isn't Leslie?
Okay, me and my cuffs. There's a tangible product that you can play with, and just don't do to me what you did to Leslie.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Wow, I do like that.
Darn, I wish I was.
Well, here's an envelope. Just slip a check inside. We'll see what we can get you taken care of. So, Alice, what's your what by when?
Okay, I would like to have, if I could have, say, 60 cuffs done and in a couple of stores done nice, say by the 1st of November.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for, that's so great. Just bringing up something that's tangible, close at hand. Got it.
Yeah.
So, 60 cuffs.
Turn it into a math problem and throw some dates in there.
60 cuffs by
November 1st.
November 1, and that's not just 60 cuffs made, it's 60 cuffs in stores, right?
Yes.
Great. What is the objective? Why is this important? What will be achieved by getting 60 cuffs in stores?
It's the beginning of Christmas shopping season, and and so to generate cash flow.
Okay, so it generates cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is just so great. I love it. Thanks so much for bringing something that's so
Concrete.
Yeah. And tangible and close by.
Mm-hmm.
So, if coming November 1, you are finishing, it's cool outside, imagine maybe there might even be moisture in the air like rain, and you're delivering your last of your 60 cuffs. They're complete, they're just the way you wanted them, they've been carved and hand rubbed, they've been branded just the way you want it, they're priced the way you want, you have the relationships you want with the dealers, and you've just delivered your last 60 cuffs. What's that like for you on November 1?
The fact that I've met a self-imposed deadline, because that feeling of accomplishment is really, I've set so many deadlines that, okay, I don't really have to have it done, because there's nobody looking over my shoulder, nobody's tapping their toe, so it will be a good feeling of accomplishment. And that's even more important to me than having sold any, just getting them out there.
Oh, great, yeah. So more important than actually getting them in the stores is a sense of accomplishment. Thanks for distinguishing that. Thanks for distinguishing that. So a sense of accomplishment standing from there, right? So what will it mean about you that you've achieved this? What will the Alice on November 1 be able to look back on or take as a gift from having produced this?
That if I could do 60 in this time frame, I could do 70 within the same time frame for the next, once I start, because what this will do is, well, I'm working on a routine. And I'm working on my time management flow in the hours in a day that I spend. So that will show me where I can improve in my process and increase my production rate. Because I'm kind of anal that way about breaking things down into time increments and so many X amount done, glued, sewed by the end of the night and that. So I can see where I can do things faster and it's all.
Right. So there's like you will have learned a lot, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to do more, you'll be able to improve the process, and it sounds like you will have learned a lot. Anything else?
Not at the moment. I'm sure there's more.
Okay.
Is it fair for anyone else to jump in?
Oh, yes,
About theirs or
please.
about Alice's?
About Alice's.
Sure. She did on yours.
And she's still not so grateful for that. Oh, let's talk about Leslie.
Well, so this will, I mean, you know, this isn't just any 60 cuffs. This is your first 60 cuffs, right?
So I've got a couple hundred sitting at home that I'm not happy with, but that was all my learning curve. So this would be 60 of the top end ones.
But it will be the first 60 that are out there, like out there available for sale. This is the start of, this is the introduction of your product to the world.
What's it mean about your business to have 60 just so in store?
That I really have a business going, and it's not just some cutesy little thing that I could talk about, show here and there, but it's real, it's viable, and it's something that requires X number of hours a day to manage and maintain. And I like that. I am schedule driven, and so that gives me something to do daily, like, okay, I have to start at a certain time, and I have to have so many done by 6 o'clock in the evening so that I can get this step done by 10 o'clock when I'm ready to climb in bed.
Yeah.
So this helps me break all that down.
Yeah. Yeah. How great. So Leslie on Alice on November 1 is different than Alice is today when she's produced that. So now we're going to do a little magic trick. It's called the Merlin exercise. You guys ready for a little magic trick? Nothing up the sleeves. So normally, how do we set goals? How do we set goals? Where do we?
People start with lists often.
They start with lists, great. And what are the lists based on?
Top of mind.
Top of mind stuff.
Pressures from the outside world.
Pressures.
Small steps that you know you have to take to get to a bigger objective.
Small steps. Bigger objective.
Visualization of where you're going.
Nice. Bigger concept, nice. Visualization. My experience is most people, a vast majority of us, start with our projects based on circumstances in the present. So here's the present. Here we are, we're our present, we have our lists, we have our whatever's on top of our mind, we have our pressures from the outside world, we're trying to get to that thing over there, we're standing here, we want to get to that place over there, we're going to create an objective to the future. So we start with the present so as to create the future. I'm going to suggest something kind of radical. What I suggest is this may not be the most powerful way to choose your future and create your future. What I'm going to suggest is that starting in the present is only guaranteeing creating that again into the future.
Huh?
Thanks for doing that, because that was a confusing thing what I just said. So I'm going to assert that creating a future based on the present is only a guarantee of recreating the present in the future. Because you are basing your future plans on the conditions that are in the present. What I'm going to assert is that the place to start is here. So, Alice, tell me, you've shared a great deal about what will be available to you by creating 60 cuffs by November 1st. If all we're looking at is that as the future, 60 cuffs into the future, and that's the only thing we're worried about, that's the only thing we have to think about. I want to think here for a second. What's the, leaving aside everything that's going on now, what's the next step that you would take in this?
You mean after this is accomplished?
No. How would you get here from right now if the only place we're standing in is then? Look, if November 1st, 60 cuffs have to get done.
Looking back from November 1st?
Thank you. Looking back from November 1st. So if November 1st is a month and a week away now, what is it that you need to, what are the pieces or the steps that you need to produce that? Working backwards from November 1. If you're working backwards and this is today, what's a milestone between November 1st and today, working backwards from November 1? You've got 5 weeks.
Okay, milestones then?
Yes.
You're assuming that they're in the stores, the 60 have been put
Okay.
into a store, is that?
Yes.
So what happens just prior to getting them in the store?
Yeah.
All right, having them boxed up, and because included in the making of the cups, I also have to produce probably 10 little displays. I've got 2 in a store at the moment, but they take a little reworking in that I build a little sign to put on the back and a little business card holder. So I have to build those also.
So what's the last thing that happens if you deliver on November 1? Your last delivery is being made. What's the last thing that happens before November 1? Is it the last dealer is found? Is it the last cuffs are made? Is it finishing up the last of the retail displays? What's the last thing that happens before you go to deliver your last ones?
That I look at them and pat myself on the back. Seriously,
Nice. Yeah?
give them all a once over, making sure I didn't miss a spot of glow,
Right.
and all that shining up.
Right.
And then,
Control.
yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
is going over your product one more time and making sure that where I'm going to be going, I've already got prearranged delivery dates. So somewhere in there in milestones would be prearranging with the store managers or owners, whatever, that I can bring those in and what they need for their display requirements. So there is one of milestones would have to be talking with the potential retailers and
Okay, so if we don't know, there's no set way to do this, right? There's no right way to do this, and there's no wrong way to do this. There's just the way that you say there is to do this. What's the thing you'd like to be doing? What seems to be the last thing that you're going to be taking care of? Are you going to line up all your dealers and then you're going to manufacture right up until the last minute and then you deliver them? Or are you going to manufacture them and then go talk to the dealers?
It's all happening kind of at the same time.
Okay.
Because I've talked to only a couple people so far, and that's why I've got a couple out there, but it's all kind of happening at the same time.
Okay.
So it's not I'm gonna get them all done, and then I'm gonna take them out to the road, kind of like the guy with the car with no doors. I'm not gonna go spend all this money and work all this time only to find that there's no market out there. So I've kind of been doing some of these milestones already, but.
So how many, for instance, in the last week of October, how many dealers will you have and how many cuffs will you have made if you're doing them all at the same time?
I will probably have 5 dealers.
So 5 dealers. And how many cuffs will have been made?
Well, let's just keep working with the number 60, but
You want to, so by the 3rd week in October, all 60 will be made?
yeah.
Okay.
Because what's happening is it's
Well,
not
without the
just-
story, Alice, I'm actually going to invite you to take a look at the project without the story. Because what we're actually looking to do is create the future separate from the circumstances and separate from the story.
Okay.
Like, if all we're going to look at, I remember we had that delicious conversation about the things that get in the way. One of the things that often gets in the way is things that show up like urgency and stories about how it's gone to date. So if all we're going to do is look specifically at the next milestone and the actions that are attached to it so as to achieve them, the first thing we have to do is declare the milestones. And it doesn't matter if you say, I want to do all 60 in the last week and I want to spend the rest of the time working on the dealers. Vice versa, a mix of the two or something all completely different. But it's just so you can declare the milestones and then design the actions around what's it going to take to get from there to here. So if this is the 3rd week in October, what about the 2nd week of October?
Like what would a milestone that I'm shooting for at that point?
Yeah. What will you have produced? How many dealers, how many cuffs? At that point, will you have 3 dealers and 40 cuffs?
Okay. I
Something
see.
like that?
Yeah, something like that.
What do you say?
I think by the middle of the month I'll have all 60 probably done because I'm happy. This is kind of a rolling process.
Okay.
Because even at November 1st, I will still have more behind me in various stages of production.
Okay. And how many dealers will you have?
We're just shooting for 5.
I understand. But by the 2nd week in October, how many will you have gotten?
Oh, maybe 2. How about that?
Okay, so 2 dealers. So in 1 week, you're going to get 3 more?
Or in, yeah, okay.
Okay.
This is good.
Okay, so this is the 2nd week in October.
Isn't there a time when you have to
Actually-
identify those dealers who you're going after?
Oh, all right. I kind of
Nice.
have that, but I wasn't, yeah, okay.
So that's
When
actually,
would you do that? Yeah.
Well, that's kind of in the works. I've only talked to a couple so far.
So-
I've had other people talk to them.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so those are, you already know 2, that, 2 of your goal dealers. If you've
Right.
already talked to 2, those are already 2 of your goals that you've established.
Nice. And-
I keep thinking though, this conversation, before we got down to this list, I kept thinking you're trying to go more towards a concept of hindsight. Is that true or not? Like,
Say more about that.
well, just like, it's just working from the future, and you were sort of asking her about, I guess, what we now understand as milestones, but I was thinking that you were trying to ask, so, okay, it's November 1st, you have hindsight, looking
Mhm.
back on
Mhm.
what you have done,
Yeah.
then the question is, what did you do right, or what would you have done differently, or something. If you imagine yourself now, you're got all your bracelets.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's definitely one way to look at it. It isn't so much like the what would you have learned from what you did, but if you're looking back, I love what you're saying about the hindsight. If you're looking back, is how would you have liked it to have gone?
Right, okay, cool.
If you're standing on November 1 and said, yeah, to get from where I was to where I'm at, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be staying up the last night before the November 1 deadline, hammering out bracelets and frantically calling the last of the dealers. It's a process that takes some time, and there's some pieces that you need to put in place. So it's like, how would I like it to go? And then once we know that we've got milestones put in place, we can start to design some actions around, oh, okay, well, if my goal this week is to, and we'll get closer, is like, you know, I love what Bill was saying around identifying dealers. Now, the beauty is what Bill just did, and what everybody in the room who's participated in your conversation have done, they've actually demonstrated themselves as resources to you. Right?
True.
Right, like, because everybody needs them. Whether it's somebody to say, attaboy, you just keep going, you're gonna get there. Or if it's somebody to say, have you considered the tax implications of the retail price that you've chosen? Or, you know, hey, I've got a pickup truck I could lend you to move that machine that you needed to. Or whatever the other piece is. Even expats as a place to come work where you feel like you're in a place where other people are being productive. Those are all resources, and we're going to sort of speak to that in a little while. But what I'd love to do is just flesh this out.
Okay.
So that was actually I apologize, I had the weeks missing. So if in the second week of October, where would you like to be?
30 completed units and probably at least 3 of my 5 or 6 little stands completed.
Nice.
And,
How many, 3 or 5?
okay, let's just say 3.
Okay.
Leave myself some wiggle room.
Nice.
Yeah.
3 stands completed.
And I've already talked to 4 retailers, and so by the middle of the month, I would like to have my follow-up conversations with them. I've really already done that, and I've just sort of left, what I'm getting is, sure, bring them on. Well, then I have to go back to my drawing board and get them to bring them on. So all I need now is to follow up on the offers I've already got, a
Okay.
place to put them.
Okay, so these are the follow-up conversations, which imply that you earlier will have had an initial conversation.
Which I already have, but,
Okay.
so I don't know where you want to put those in, because that's already behind me now.
Okay. So how about the first week of October?
Which, by the way, is next week.
Thank you.
Right.
Just saying.
Right. But the idea,
I had this coming.
well, the idea isn't so much to make it overwhelming or scary. The idea is to just break it down into pieces that are chewable. Now, you can break them even further down. You can create milestones that are every 3 days, twice a week.
I've
You know.
really already done that, because a lot of this, I've already got all of these things in play. I've already had some conversations. I've got some of my stands. I've stocked up on supplies. And so a lot of this, so if you want to throw in there, you know, the purchasing of supplies to make sure I have enough, that's kind of already done. But okay, let's just call that the end of the first week to-do thing, is to have enough tubes of glue and enough sheets of metal, and I've got plenty of leather, but to make sure I have all the materials that I need. Let's
Okay.
say that's a milestone for the first week that I
And-
could say is already done.
Yeah, exactly. And how many cuffs will you make next week, Annie? If you're gonna have 30 done by the second week, what about by the end of the first week?
End of the first week, actually probably, in reality, probably, oh, let's call it 15.
Okay, 15 cuffs.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've had 4 conversations with potential dealers. How many more dealers do you need to have initial conversations for possibility with about carrying your stuff?
I don't really want to yet, because I am limited by my personal manpower. And I don't want to, I'm not ready to, I want to get, okay, so beyond November 1st, I want to get to where if I get 5 stores regularly,
Right.
I want to get myself in the flow of being able to keep them supplied. And of course, it will ebb and flow. Things are going to dry up in January. But still, I don't want to drive myself crazy where that's all I have to wake up, oh my God, I got to make more. So right now, if I got them in 5 stores, I'm good.
Got it. So here's what I got, is you've had 4 conversations, but you have a commitment to 5 dealers.
Yeah, I figured I'd throw one on there just for fun, just to give
Well,
myself a little extra challenge.
Have you signed 4 contracts?
Oh, no, no.
Well, I'm curious, how,
I've had 4 stores say bring them on. We got room for them, bring them on. So
well,
it's
here's
back
what I'm
to-
curious, is that it sounds like, A, you're holding that all of these dealers will say yes. Okay. And that some magical extra dealer will show up and say, I want to carry it?
That's a possibility. There's my online store that I haven't even done anything with.
Got it. Are you going to do anything between now and November 1st about your online store?
Yeah, but don't put that out there.
Okay, so how are we going to get the 5th dealer?
Well, that might be my online store.
Okay, so if it wasn't going to be a might be thing, how would you get your 5th dealer?
I would cold call another gift shop.
Okay.
And I've got a couple actually that, 2 more consignment stores that have said bring them on. So I've actually got 2 instead of just 1 more, but I don't know if I can handle all that obligation, so,
Okay. Well, if it wasn't an obligation, if we were just standing in the future,
yeah.
where you were in a place standing like with a profound sense of accomplishment, that you were standing and having a real and viable business, that you will have learned so much from the production and needing to be in production around a holiday season, where you can see where there's an opportunity to improve and that you can create more than you thought you could. Does
And
that?
that's a very distinct possibility. Actually, to ask myself to do 60, that's not a hard thing. I set a low number to keep this manageable.
Okay.
I am not going to bite off more than I can chew.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't like how they look when they're done, so that's one for the scrap heap, which takes me down to 59. So 60 is not an unmanageable number.
Got it. So, got it with a 60. How about the dealers?
What about them?
Well, so there's 2 consignment shops that you need to have the initial conversation with.
I already have.
Okay, so they're follow-ups as well?
One of those is that 5th one. I've got 4 stores that I have already got a bring them on response to, and I've got 2 consignment stores, so I've really got 6 cooking.
Okay,
And
so
that's
you've actually
a lot.
had initial conversations with 6. So you have 6 folks to follow up with. Are you going to follow up with all 6 of them in the 2nd week? You want to do some earlier or break it up into a later?
Okay, we'll break it up.
Okay, how should we break it up?
2 and 3. Okay, for the first week, say 2.
Mm-hmm.
By mid-month, say 3, I guess.
2 follow-up conversations and 3.
Sure.
I get from your countenance that maybe this is feeling overwhelming. Is it feeling overwhelming?
I'm trying to keep it from that because of the conversations that I've had, and I've shown them, and the stores say, sure, we'll carry them. Then I'm going back and thinking, I don't want to sit here from 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night making these, so I've got to keep this manageable in size. I've kind of got more opportunities that I'm able to keep that up with. So
Okay.
right now, for Christmas, if I get them in 5 stores, I'm happy.
Okay. So what are we missing? Oh, wait, the one thing we didn't do is, there's one more milestone, which is this week. Today's Tuesday. We have a few more days left in the week. If we're only focusing on November 1st, and we know what we're working on next week, and the week after, and the week after that, and the week after that, what would we work on this week?
Simply production.
Simply production, so working on cuffs. How many cuffs would you produce by the end of this week?
A dozen.
A dozen? So that following week would just be 3? 3 more?
No, Yeah, probably, in truth, probably 10,
So 10 more?
probably.
Okay, so that would be more like 22. And then 8 more the following week? I'm just trying to adjust the numbers.
Actually, in truth, about a dozen a week
But-
is not
Okay,
unheard of.
okay. Is that in service of what you're up to? It's not too much? It's,
Yeah.
like I said, we're trying to create it as chunks that work for you. So,
I can do more, but I'm just gonna call it a dozen a week.
well, how perfect is that? Because a dozen goes into the 5 weeks perfectly.
I figured that out.
I'll
beforehand.
figure. You're so smart. Excellent. So what do you see from doing this process? And that's an open question for everybody.
A large monthly schedule that I can either adhere to or use as a guide. Because if you get into the third week and you realize that you're kind of behind where you should be on the third week, you know, where you have to kind of shore a few things up. So by breaking it down into smaller steps, if you can meet those smaller self-imposed deadlines, then the big one's going to take care of itself. It's kind of like, you know, Ben Franklin, you know, you watch your pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. It's really just like that.
Yeah, take care of the small steps. Bill?
I say it gives you some options too, as you lay this out. One of the thoughts that struck my mind was, what if you took one of the dealers after you had 15 cups or 10 cups or 12 or whatever, and put them in that store to see what the sell rate was? Now, if they came back and said, gee, we sold all 12 in 1 week, you may not be able to handle 5 dealers. So
That's why I don't want to
so
commit
maybe
to
you
more.
should stick to 1 or 2. You know, you don't know what this is.
Well, the other thing I see about what Bill is suggesting is that that would take you through the whole, you know, once you have your 12 cuffs, let's say, and if you can go through the whole cycle, you'll learn from that cycle what was missing from your original planning.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this is all learning curve, right?
Totally.
And so there will be some like, oh, well, what about that contract? Or, oh, well, what about that? You know, I don't know, but things that you didn't think about because you haven't gone through it.
A lot of those. This is totally a learning curve.
Yeah.
And that's why I think getting them done by November 1st, and then there's still Christmas, and I'll still have a lot more in the backup. But if I can just keep between now and Christmas season, if I can just have them in 5 stores, that's all I'm ready to commit to at the time. And if they all sell out, and I run out and I say, I'm sorry, I don't have any more, that's okay.
Well, I guess that wasn't what I was suggesting. What I was wondering about is, would you consider, or maybe it's already part of your plan or not, to go to one dealer sooner than later and complete the entire cycle of getting them into the store, like, you know, by mid-October or whatever. And then you learn from that, and so then when you go to the second store, you'll be in slightly better shape with the second store.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Instead of doing them all at once, do
Right.
one at a time. And I kind of have it going on. I do have them out at the marketplace right now. So I'm kind of playing with that, and I talked to the gals there about feedback. So I sort of already have that kind of going on.
Nice.
But you're right, one at a time rather than all at once, because each one will show me the things I've missed, the little mistakes I made.
Yeah, and, you know, there's always going to be tons of folks who have some background or some experience who are going to give you some input and some feedback. At the end of the day, it's your project. It doesn't serve anybody for you to create a project that is so overwhelming and that you can't, you know, you can't own and support. Like, I get that it feels for you right now like it's on the edge of your comfort zone, it's on the edge of being overwhelmed, and there's, you know, there's some real pieces to it for you. It doesn't serve anybody if the project ends up being something that's so big you just can't even own it. And you can't empower it, because that's the big deal. Because if you can't look at whatever the milestones are that you create and say, yeah, I can do that. Like, that just means making 3 phone calls today and two cuffs. Today's 3 phone calls, 2 cuffs. That's all I have to do today. I can probably do that.
There's tons of businesses that fail when they get to that point and they get too big and they can't manage it.
So, the next piece I want to
Well,
talk.
in general, I'm very scared of anything like that because just the sort of uncomfortableness when I haven't met a stage.
Mhm.
So I prefer to just not have any plans, maybe. So what do you do when you notice you're not where you're supposed to be? You just...
Well, that's a bigger question. What I might suggest is, or here's a question for you, is what's the cost? What's the cost to you to not have plans and structures and goals? What's the cost of not having that?
All right, but I don't really feel comfortable talking about it, but...
Okay. Well, so, thanks for saying so, and that's perfectly fine. Who else? Where do you notice in your life where you like, you know, if I could just do that thing, whether it's lose weight, go out and find that significant other, call those 10 more prospects, you know, have that conversation with my neighbor that's uncomfortable, but you don't put any structure behind it to create it. What's the impact? What's the impact of not putting structure behind something that is on the back of your mind?
Being overwhelmed for one thing.
So a sense of overwhelm. Anything else?
Something nagging at you.
Something nagging at you.
It could be self-forming, but you want it to be in a place that it's not ready to go yet.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. One of the ways that's really a powerful way for me to take a look at it is it's a power drain. It's a power drain.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed like the laundry's not getting done, and no matter if you try and watch TV or you try and relax, or you try and go read your book or go have coffee with a friend, all you're thinking about is, oh God, there's 2 loads of laundry at home, or I haven't fixed that leak in the sink, or the car needs an oil change, or whatever it is, or I never called that client back, or I never sent that thank you note, or I never. They become power drains and they become exhausting. Like literally, can I go back to bed? Or they become frustrating. So
So what happens when your list has gotten so long that you don't know where to begin?
Yeah.
then I might suggest that you're probably not working in projects. That you might be working in, you know, if it sounds like I can tell, I'm the same guy, right? Like, so, you know, it's like, and it's everything from home to spouse to work to speaking to clients to, right? And it's a little bit of everything. What I'm asserting is that when things are in alignment with a project, and you have empowered like specific projects in your life about what you want to create for yourself, you'll find out the priority level of all of your to-do list really quickly.
Okay,
So
for
go ahead.
example, I have a big to-do list this week.
Okay.
It includes, I have to get 2 lamps designs, big
Mhm.
lamps for fence buildings,
Okay.
2 fence railings designs,
Mm-hmm.
specs written for a completely different project.
Oh, I missed
And
that. What did you say?
Specs written.
Specs. Got
Written for
it.
a completely different project,
Right.
and construction details for a 3rd project.
Yikes.
And then I'm here, and I love it here, but you're right, it's a little bit, you know,
A little bit overwhelming.
yeah,
Okay. So it's a little overwhelming right now, and so it's all work related.
it's all.
So it's all work
And then
related.
there's 2 projects that I want to do, that are always like, I keep wanting to do, which are getting 2 ideas to market and to manufacture. One really low tech, and one really high tech, which I never seem to get to that first step on, right? Those are more bigger projects, like.
The aspirational.
The aspirational thing is like, you know.
Right.
Like,
And if you were in action about those 2, and you were able to move those forward, what's that in service of in your life?
if I were to, they're in service of actually feeling like I've done something big. Like, not a lot of
Okay.
little things, but done something big.
Okay, so you've done something big. And what's your current experience of how this is going?
Well, you know, as Linda Gates says, everyone needs a passionate advocate. You know, we're all born with one. Everyone gets mom as their passionate advocate, but that kind of disappears after a while, and then becomes later on in your life. You need to have one, but you also need to be your own passionate advocate. And I feel like my passionate advocate is like the ghost is, like it's just a ghost voice now, you know, with all this stuff. It's like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, but I don't really believe I can.
Got
Does
it.
that make
So
sense?
that, yeah, so the conversation is, I don't think I can do it. And then, this isn't the first time we've been here. This isn't a new place to be for you.
No.
How does it go?
Sometimes it's all in different things. Usually, you know how it goes, it doesn't go very well, I don't get everything done.
Okay, so you don't get it done, and how are you left? So you don't get it done, and what's the impact of that?
Losing future work sometimes.
Okay, so lose clients.
Losing sense of accomplishment.
Mhm.
You know, people are often pretty, you know, when you're working with, we're often okay about like stuff slipping,
Mhm.
but inevitably, you know, there's a point where it's almost like it becomes friable. Right?
Right. And
The cohesion is gone.
so what's the, she was a client.
I didn't mean to derail the conversation.
No, you're doing fine. This is perfect. This is fine. This is absolutely fine. This is, you know, it's all in service of the same conversation. So thanks for bringing it up. So you don't get it done, you lose the client, you lose your sense of accomplishment, and that's what you get to take moving forward. So this is actually a really fantastic conversation that's bigger than we can have today, but it's about how we deal with overwhelm. So what has you promise this?
What has me promised that I could do all of that?
All of that in the same time period.
Well, you know, it's kind of a feast or famine thing, you know, because you go without work for a while, and then
Yep.
work comes in, you don't want to say no.
Right, and so you want to say yes to all of it and
Yeah,
now.
because you need the
Right,
cash.
right. I'm going to make a suggestion, and I'm afraid I'm not going to follow it up, but I'm going to make a suggestion that how this goes is a direct reflection of why it goes back to here, which results in this, which results in this, which results in this, which results in this. That, and I'm making some big assertions, and your mileage may vary, but what you're left with is going to be the driving force of feast or famine that has you say yes and yes and yes and yes and yes and yes, and then the same circumstances come up where you don't get it done and there's no sense of accomplishment and like that and that and that, which leaves you not with a feeling of abundance but a feeling of scarcity, which then drives when business does come in back to here. So it's a consistent cycle, and we all have them.
What, did you say, with business what?
Feast or famine.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle. What I'm suggesting is that,
So when you say when she doesn't get it done, does that mean she gets lots of offers of work? Is that?
no, when she doesn't get it done, what she's left with is that she didn't say what she didn't do what she said she was going to do. She has the potential or the likelihood of losing a client, and she herself feels like she's lost her sense of accomplishment. What I'm suggesting is that on the back side of that, it's going to, that when the next round of work comes in, it is going to feed back into this same loop of feeling like there's scarcity, there's not an abundance of work and an abundance of clients, but oh my gosh, I have to get these clients and I have to take care of them because somehow this will be different than the last time. And in taking all of this on, what I might suggest is it's just driving you back into here. Not taking them all on, but not managing it in a way. So my invitation for you, and I'm happy to talk to you about this afterwards, is how can you take what's happening right now and shift it now? Not to have to learn from how it didn't go or in the future, but how can we shift that now so your clients win and so that you're not left with this, which will result with this, doing it again. So can I put a bookmark there and leave you with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for that. And how we got here was talking about to-do lists. We all have to-do lists. But the moment we start taking a look at the key areas in our lives which are most important, like, is it your spouse? Is it your relationship with your spouse? Is it your children? Is it yourself? Is it your work? Is it your vocation is work, avocation is what you volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Am I? Okay.
Avocation, that's what you love.
Avocation. Is it your avocation? Is it your well-being? Is it your relationships outside of spouse? Friends, family, like that. And where are these in your life? And what is it that you're working on? Because I'd be willing to bet if we looked in every area, people were really willing to take a look for themselves, they'd say, you know, I would love to get away with my wife for a long weekend. And we never do that. We spend so much time with the kids. You know what? I want to read with my daughter more often. We don't read enough. Or, you know, I just don't take enough time for myself. Or, you know I should be taking better care of myself. I should be eating healthier, and I just don't. What I might suggest is when we don't know what our priorities are and we don't know what we're up to, that's when we end up with the endlessly long to-do list that is forever draining and unsatisfying because we're not going anywhere and we haven't chosen anything. And what you choose doesn't matter, but that you choose does.
Say that again, please.
What you choose does not matter, but that you choose does.
Oh. Okay.
So what I'm gonna take a look at next, assuming for the moment that we've chosen, leads into, you guys have, thanks for bringing all this up. You guys brought up like 7 different conversations we could have. So one of the things we always want to look at when we're looking at a project is skills. Alice, what skills do you have to produce this result? What skills do you have?
Sales, production, cutting, sewing, gluing,
Sales, cutting,
self-discipline
sewing,
to meet some of my deadlines.
gluing,
I mean, all of that,
discipline.
there's ways to do that wrong, let me tell you.
Got it?
Designing, I guess.
Design, nice.
Yeah. It's good,
Good communicator?
yeah.
Got it. Passionate?
Definitely.
Know how to use a computer? Does that aid you in this project?
Yes, but not overly much.
Okay. How about a phone? You know how to talk on the phone to people?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
What other skills do you have? What other skills do people know Alice has that will be key in her being able to deliver on this product and create this future?
Well, she's sort of implied it, but creativity in the design.
Yeah.
But I think creativity is sort of more broad than just the design of bracelets.
Yeah. She's got vision. She's got vision, right? Have you seen some of the steampunk stuff she's done? Vision.
Probably technical skills too, of understanding leather.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on all this, yeah, it's very technical stuff, the sewing, gluing, cutting, that's all. Welding or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I gotta learn to weld, I gotta do that.
Right?
See, and the skill she has is interested in learning something new.
Willing,
Yeah.
interested in learning.
Because that vision, I'll tell you, I trip over that. I can see things that I want to make, and then I don't have the ability to build that big. So I have to learn to solder.
Yep. Yeah, you got some skills. You got a big old list of skills. How about resources? What resources do you have? Both conceptual and physical,
Tangible.
tangible, that's great. Tangible and conceptual do you have that support you in this project?
Materials, machinery, equipment,
Okay, what materials? You have the leather, metal,
glue. Thank God for Ace Hardware.
right?
Knowing where Ace Hardware is a great resource.
Leather, metal, glue.
Yeah,
Her skills are her resources.
yeah.
Yep.
Place to work.
Place to work, it's critical, right? Place where there's power and heat. It's not overly moist, nobody's in snacking away on your leather.
Although I did have to put it all in a giant tub because the new cat
Uh-oh.
ruined a few pieces of my leather. He thought, oh, I like this, and he used it. So, yes,
Did you tell the cat he might become a leather bracelet here shortly?
loudly.
Got it. So you have other resources, right? So who do you have in your life? Who do you have in your life who supports you in your art?
My daughter and my grandson.
Your daughter and your grandson. And what do they provide?
Place I did bounce ideas off of.
Sounding board,
The physical place.
right? But who are they for you other than that? I mean, the sounding board is what I'm like sort of looking at. What else
Cheering
do they do?
section.
Cheering squad, we love that.
Moral support, yeah.
Warm support. What else do you have?
I have a whole big Facebook community.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's just an extension of that, but it's
So it's is it your fan page or your personal page?
my personal, so
Your
that's.
Facebook community?
Yeah, extended cheering section there.
Mm-hmm. Who individually is a massive fan and speaks out for Alice? And what do they provide?
Nieces and grandnieces.
Okay.
We have
Hey,
a bunch of women in the family, so,
God, which one?
oh, I don't know, I have 5 niece-in-laws.
Is there
It's
anyone that?
all the younger women in my family, and there's probably 20 of them.
Okay. Did any one or two of them stand out?
Oh, I have my daughters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different than this daughter?
One
Diff-
other one, yeah.
Great. What's her first name?
Alexis.
Alexis. What does Alexis provide?
More cheering section.
Cheering. Anything else?
She sells some of my bracelets.
Nice. She does singles.
Yes.
Anybody that you lean on to provide support, like advice or feedback, or provide a specific background that might support you? Like somebody who's been in the business, or
No, everybody kind of comes to me. I've sort of evolved into sort of the matriarch of the family, kind of.
so you're the matriarch all by yourself?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, okay.
An old word, but that's kind of how it's worked out.
Got it. Do you notice that there are any gaps in support that you do need?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know this to be true about you. What I will suggest is that it's generally true about human beings, is that we do separate and alone really well, but it's not very fulfilling. I'd be willing to bet that even in this house, there are a dozen people who frequently scream your name from the rooftops because they love what you do and your passion and your skill. And would love to support you if you needed it. I might suggest that that's a place to look for you, just to consider. Because there's nothing, even at 60 delivered cups on November 1, to ending world hunger, to getting through the day some days, that we can't do it alone. We're social human beings. Human beings are all about being related. And I don't know if there's any one of us who hasn't been like, you know what, I just need to have a conversation with somebody, because if not, my whole day's gonna get
Well,
derailed.
I have to admit that that is something that this place has provided that I didn't even realize I was looking for until I started coming here. And I have had conversations with other people here at Officexpats, and I hear a common thread that there are a lot of people that didn't know what they didn't have until they came here and stumbled on it.
So it sounds like expats is a resource
Anna
for you.
gave a speech at the party that echoed that very sentiment, and she was very eloquent in how she phrased it, and I didn't realize it until I heard her saying.
So I'm willing to bet, I've spent a little time with you, I'd be willing to bet you know hundreds of people.
I don't think so.
You don't think you know hundreds of people?
Oh, maybe I've met them over the years.
I'd be willing to bet you're connected to 100 people on this island.
Maybe.
You might consider that there are more resources out there than you think. Like, you know, maybe that there are more folks that might want to support you, whether it's like, hey, I'm just really getting bored doing bracelets all by myself all day. You want to come over and have some tea, and I'm just gonna make bracelets while we drink tea? Or, you know, maybe there's somebody who's, oh, I gotta get a box and it's a pain in the tail and it won't fit in my car. Can you come over and give me a hand? Would you be willing to? I'd be willing to bet that there are a lot of folks that might serve you if you took a look to support you in getting your project done, so it doesn't end up being one of those all alone. Because that thing about the overwhelm and I gotta keep it down, I can just keep it to what I can handle, is that the moment that you open it up and allow others to contribute and allow others to be a part of your process because they love you and want you to win in the world, the more that this opens up and the more that's available to everybody. And to you and to them, because it's a contribution to them to be able to provide something for you, because I know how generous you've been in the work that we've done with your feedback and advice and
But you know what? I'll bet you that's one of the hardest things for everybody to admit to or to make use of. It's real easy to see a need and go out and want to help, but to ask for help or to display a need, that's a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
it sure can. I'm supposed to know how to do this. I look weak.
Or not having just what it takes to say, hey, I need a little help. That's the toughest thing sometimes, and I know I'm not alone in that.
You need to watch Amanda Palmer's TED Talk.
What?
Amanda Palmer, she's a punk musician. kind of.
She's a what?
She's a musician,
Yeah.
and she does this great TED Talk about asking.
Oh, Ted
And
is
it's
not.
really great about how asking is really giving. It's
I'm
fantastic.
making a note of that.
So that's my recommendation, everyone.
Nice,
She is amazing.
nice. Well, we started to take a look at all the skills and the resources. We know the what and we know the by when. We know what the objective is. Why are we doing this? The objective was to create cash flow. We know what our skills are. We know what our resources are, the things that we can call on. And for instance, if I was working with a client, I would require them to come up with a list of 10 to 20 resources that are people, specific people they can call on for support, like cheerleading, brainstorming, sounding board, the person I know that I can just call and whine and complain, or, the person who can cover me with the kids while I go do a thing with a client while my wife's doing her thing with catering, and right, like that. So finding a robust list of resources, even in a project that may only be a month long, so you know where you can reach out, because we know when we get stopped. Have you ever noticed that you go through periods where you're like, I feel really great, things are moving forward, and we're on our way, and then you get stopped like you hit a brick wall. And you're like, I don't know what's wrong, I can't get anything done, I feel like hell, I don't know what to do next. Has anybody ever been there? Well, the moment that you have that, the last place you want to look is on the inside to find out what to do next. Because what I do next is be like, I'm gonna go sit in bed and pull the covers over my head and wish it never happened. But if we have it down on paper, then no matter how we feel about where we're at, we know what the next piece is. We know what's the next piece is. All right. I got totally taken out because that one dealer said, no, we don't do that, we don't like leather goods, right? Because sometimes that's what happens. And we make it mean something, and it takes us out, and we're like, don't want to make any more calls. And then we can go back and say, what did I say I was going to get into, and what's it in service of? It's in service of the goal, it's in service of the objective, it's in service of what you create, that sense of accomplishment. That you have a business that is viable and producing a cash flow. You will have learned more, you'll expanded your production capacity. I'd be willing to argue that those are well worth getting back in action when one dealer says no, or when the leather goes bad, or whenever, because if there's Murphy out there, he's gonna toss something in the way between now and November 1, right? So, the next piece is to take a look at the actions that we're gonna take between here and the first milestone. The only thing, now we already know where we're going. We've already got it laid out. So we don't have to worry about this now. The only thing we need to worry about is not going from here to here, which generally is, how is that to go, I'm here, but in 6 months I'm going to rule the world. How is that to look at something that's a big goal that you have far out into the future?
Break it down into one step at a time.
Right, but if you don't do that and you just look at the, I'm going over there,
Oh, you're gonna turn tail and
overwhelming, turn tail and run, absolutely. So now that we've got it written down, we don't have to worry about it going away, we don't have to worry about that thing in the future, it's coming. We know it's on its way.
That first step.
You only have to worry about that first step. So what are the actions that you'll take on this week to produce the results of the first milestone? The first milestone is 12 cups by the end of business on Friday. So what actions do you need to take to produce 12 cups by the end of Friday?
Just continue what I've already got going with the sewing and the gluing. The cutting.
Okay, so how do you measure that? What are the actions that you measure that by?
The steps in the production, you mean?
Sure. Like, do you put it, is it measured in hours? Is it measured in cuts? Is it measured in a leather day, a metal day?
It's in steps. It's just in steps of, I've got 10 of them cut. Then then I'll sit and I'll glue 10 of them. And
Right.
then I'll start all the black ones and I'll just keep the black thread in the machine. I'll get all the black ones done and I'll get all the blue ones done.
Nice. So it sounds like you actually break it down by color.
Oh, everything's.
Okay, so
And
what,
it's-
so how long does it take to do, would you measure, and because I don't know, would you like say, Wednesday morning, I'm gonna do all the black ones. I'm gonna cut and thread black.
Well, I do all the cutting. I do a group, I'll do all cut them.
You'll cut all the colors at once?
This is kind of overly details, but then you have to sit down and cut all the oaks. Then
Right.
you gotta sit down with my existing patterns and my white chalk and my templates and fill in all the templates. And then I'll bring them in because I open here from 7 to 9, so in the mornings I sit and I'll do all of my cutting. And then I'll go home and then I'll glue all the backings. And then I'll sit down and I'll do, and it's easier to do things in a group rather than to cut one, glue one, sew one, and like that.
Absolutely.
So I group.
So how would you break these down into actions, as opposed to just do more of the same? What actions would you take? How would you break down the actions?
You've got it broken down, like all the cutting, all the gluing.
Got it. So cutting. So cutting is an action. And so there's cutting. There's gluing is next.
There's cutting, and there's chalking, if you can call it that. the
Okay,
templates.
chalking. This is good.
Then there's more cutting.
Then there's more cutting.
Then there's gluing.
Cutting 2, we'll call it.
Cutting 2. Then there's sewing.
Then there's sewing.
Then there's some little more cutting.
And then there's cutting 3.
Then there's gluing.
Nice.
And there's several steps to that gluing. And then there's...
How many steps?
Oh, I have not actually counted the steps.
Okay, so there's gluing. Then what's after the gluing?
After the final gluing, and you let it dry. And then there's the
So there's
fun
gluing
part.
and then there's final gluing.
Then there's the fun part, and that's the branding.
Gluing.
You line them all up, and you heat that baby up, and you brand them all. And I tell
Branding.
you, there's a sense of satisfaction in there.
All right, so are these all the steps basically?
Basically, yes.
Okay. So the first one is cutting 1, right? When will you do that?
What, when?
Yeah.
Well, like what time of the day? I mean, because I do these.
Well, between now and Friday.
Oh, well, right now, you could say I'm at the cutting 3 stage.
You're at the cutting 3 stage
So-
for producing a dozen?
So, yeah, sewing and cutting 3. I've got a dozen that are in production right now.
So-
But I also have some others in the pipeline because there's the drying period of the gluing while you're sewing these, those are drying.
Yeah, and the intention here, and thanks for playing with me, the intention here is just to tease out the steps. I get it that it's an organic process, and for folks that it's not an organic process, because this is where you find, it sounds like you find the most ease in your work, it's like you know the process, you love the process, but the moment we can start teasing it out and knowing what the next action is, because somewhere along the line, the cutting went to hell, the glue was bad, or,
Something went wrong.
you know, the brand broke, right? Something happens that gets in the way where you're like, oh my God, now what? Now what am I gonna do? If you know what the next actions are, then you know what there is to do next.
Well, see, having worked at Boeing in scheduling and production and studying all those flows, and that we had books on how all the parts were made and all the steps, and if you've got more in the pipeline, we had what we called Visio charts at the time. So you have an if, then, and alternative routes already set up. And that's why with more in the pipeline, as you have your mistakes or the ones that fail your QA stop, you've got more in the pipeline that fill those gaps. So I kind of already have that whole plugged.
Right. Well, that's great, and thanks, because that's gonna be in service of everyone else in the room, and it's obviously a place you have a lot of expertise.
What if you get cutting the leather and you find, oh, this is not cutting the same as the first piece? Do you modify what you do? Have you changed?
I just altered pressure, but I have run into that. I've had putting some pressure and I've had the thing go, whoops, I didn't mean to slice that in half. And then there's that time when, oh, should I get stitches in that?
Right, right, and then you know. And then when you get back from the doctor, you'll know what's next, because it's already on there. So again, once we get to Friday, we reassess where we at. Do we get a dozen done? Do we do more? Do we do less? How do we need to adjust and maybe sometimes we need to adjust the milestones depending on what showed up. But then the following week, you wake up and Monday morning, you know exactly what you need to do that week. There's a list of to-dos that gets you between your milestones. So I appreciate it. You guys have been very generous. We've actually gone 5 minutes over what I said we'd go over. So it's 1:15. Are there any follow-up questions? This is like what I would like to share with you is a project design can be as teased out as what we've done. It also can be done on a Post-it. It can be done on a Post-it in 5 minutes. Like, I got a project between now and noon, and I got to do the thing. You know, I got to get an Eventbrite site up. I have to, you know, put that proposal together for that client. I have to put that talk together that I need to work on the first 10 minutes of my talk, because it's the most challenging part. And you can literally be like, here's what I want to create. Here's what there is between now and then. This is the result I'm trying to produce. These are the steps that I'll know I've gotten there. How do I get from where I am right now to the end of that first step? It's actually a very, very empowering structure to move from where you are to where you want to be. It's not the only structure, but it is an empowering one. And anybody who wants to follow up with me, to sit with me and chat with me a little bit about what it would be like to work with a coach who does nothing but work in here, or has any further questions about how they might move their projects forward, I'm certainly interested in meeting with folks. And are there any follow-up questions? You guys have been so great, especially
Can you
those.
just repeat that little line backwards? Here's what I want to create, here's what I need to do.
I would if I could remember it.
Okay.
I'm sure with the help of Steve, it's gonna be up on the expat site in no time at all.
Well, let me try.
Okay.
So, you know, what's my objective? You know, what do I want to create? What are my milestones for getting there? And what are the actions I need to take to get to my next milestone?
Very good.
And I think also a piece of that I would highlight as part of the beginning phase is, you've alluded to it, what would be, it's like, if I don't make this, what's going to be missing or not available to me if I don't make it? Like, and the positive version of that is what is available to me, or you know, why am I doing it? It's
Right.
the objective.
Yes.
But, I don't know, my words are failing me.
Well, you know,
How will
what
it
is
bite
what
me
what
if
what
I
I think you're alluding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is breaking up an old story about how it's gone. Like, we all have an experience of ourselves about what we have done or haven't done, what we've accomplished or not accomplished, what we created or what we didn't create. My experience with human beings is that very often it's a disempowering conversation, and working to create a future that is outside of our current experience, create a future that is a design future, not based on current circumstances, is the opportunity to break up an old story, an old disempowering story about how we hold ourselves.
And I think what I was, so there, the objective, there's the possibility of what's available if I, you know, when I get to this future.
Mhm.
And, it's funny, I just lost it again. What's the cost, you know, of not getting there?
Yeah. What's the cost of staying here?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much.
I
Yes,
was
Bill?
thinking, one of the things that hits me the most is as I go through these stages, I suddenly see new ideas, new implications, and suddenly I'm changing all the stuff that's going on in the future weeks, even kind of the scope and dimension of the project.
Right.
And then that gives you frustration. You say, oh, maybe I should have just gone ahead and done it this way without worrying about that and make that a secondary project or something.
Right, and sometimes what you can do, you know, my suggestion is always creating a massive objective, like conceptually, like what it will provide, and something that's outside my comfort zone that I don't know how to produce, put that up here and have very generic milestones, because the generic milestones are the ones that allow for the most flexibility between getting here and there, as long as you're getting to the milestone. Like where I thought I was going to be was to land 5 more clients, was to do 10 speaking gigs. But in calling one of those places I thought I was going to get a speaking gig, they got so excited about my work, they had me come in and decided to have me take on 10 of their employees. Well, I hit the same milestone. It wasn't all the way I thought I would, but it doesn't matter because the milestone was 10 clients. Well, thank you guys so much, and
Thank you.
lots of fun. Yes.
What were you talking about next week?
I will be here next week. Next week is the new
This is it.
October. This is the last one.
So
This
next
is
week is
the
WordPress.
last of 3.
Okay.
The last of
It was
3.
great. Yeah, it was only 3. It was really great. Fun.
Well, thanks.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Will you come back? Very clear.
I will. I would love to come back. This is actually part of my project, which is to build myself as a regional speaker on empowerment, leadership, and accomplishment.
I'd love to hear a follow-up session about what you were talking over here when the schedule is feast and famine and how to break that cycle.
Oh, the delicious overwhelm cycle. Oh, it's one of my favorite things to talk about.